Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. This is our Twitch recap episode from last week's live stream, where we very first started off taking another solid look at our new launch platform and our new crewed vehicle. We did get the launch escape system integrated down to just a couple of parts instead of over 100 parts, which greatly helps with our frame rate and stability of the game uh, in general. So we wanted to do a full up, completely integrated launch test, basically a dry run for an actual launch, not jettisoning the launch escape tower entirely too early, but instead going through the step by step as we would if this were an actual mission. We do have a name, but we're going to hold off on announcing it until we have the actual maiden flight, because that is more kind of the standard procedure. Although I will tell you that the rocket itself, the lift vehicle, which we have best been designating as Type 3 since its inception stream, has been coded the BPR, Big Perseus rocket. Not to insinuate anything, but it is now official. That is our BPR lift vehicle. This is BPR Block 1. So we're just going to run through this test launch because I feel like we've done one of these every week for a month or so. Simulation Gaming also provided us with a fix for the bouncy launch clamps by editing their config to increase their mass, which might hurt early game. If you were playing early in the game when you've got the mass limit for the pad, having each clamp be 5 tons is probably going to bite you there, but we don't have to worry about that. We have unlimited weight on our pad, and thank goodness, because this thing is massive. So it really doesn't phase anything we are doing. It does, however, prevent rockets from bouncing on the launch clamps and slamming engines into the pad or blowing up the pad when said engines slam into it. So we have not really made any other actual changes to this. We're still sticking with the Block 1 initial design with its kind of staggered booster setup. The first booster set has 4 RD-172 engines. The second booster set has 3. The third booster set has 2 engines per booster, and then of course it'll ride on the core stage. The second stage has 5 RS-25DE engines. That will help get it most of the way to orbit, although we do need a quick circularization burn from the 3 HG3A vacuum engines on the Echo upper stage that will also be responsible for pushing our new crew vehicle to Mars or Venus, which are the 2 targets for which this vehicle is capable. The Echo upper stage should have enough left in it to begin a very serious propulsive capture maneuver. There's a first booster set; those are down and away. The plan is to basically jettison the Echo upper stage into the atmosphere of whatever planet we are arriving at, correct out, and then do the rest of the capture burn on our new vehicle's Block 5 Carolox engine, which in any case should have enough for circularization, and then we can rely mostly on our thrusters for docking, seeing as how it will be kind of a lightweight system at that point. Second stage boosters, down and away. A little bit of off angle was not my best flown flight plan. It is really difficult to play the game while talking and paying attention to chat. It's just beyond my mental capacity in many regards. I'd like to think I'm getting better, but the truth of it is I'm not. I've kind of peaked out. This is as good at this game as I'm going to be, especially while narrating it and having conversations with people, which is always a good time. Don't get me wrong. I'd much rather have fun and be bad at the game than be good at the game and not have fun doing it. Anyway, so our third set of boosters are about to detach. There they go, down and away. Now we're just on our core stage. There is our LES jettison. That will get well clear of us. And then we can start ditching other things like the safety fairings, which I really should have gotten rid of exactly at this point. However, I did not. I was trying to correct being pretty well off balance. There is our fairing set. So now the spacecraft is in its actual flight configuration, I suppose. We did have radiators grouped to an action group. This will help keep our liquid oxygen liquid and inside the spacecraft where it belongs so that we can use it to go places or return from places should the event arise to do so. We are coming up on core stage separation here very shortly. I probably should have sped this up a bunch more because we've seen it happen a whole lot of times. I've kind of got the flight pattern for this rocket almost good enough. A few more practice runs, we should be okay. Maybe a few other little tweaks and changes just for optimization's sake. There was a big stutter on KSP's part that made me really scared the game had crashed, but it was not to be. All 5 RS-25s fired up perfectly. Now we will have to angle up by a little bit as we are very quickly approaching our time to apoapsis. Thrust to weight ratio on this currently 0.82. I think it hits ignition at 0.8 something. Maybe it's 0.7 something. It's not the fastest means by any stretch of the word. But with a few degrees up angle, we should be able to dial this in to a point where we don't start plummeting horribly back to Earth, maybe just a little bit. And I need to remind myself to put a set of tools in that KIS storage container, as well as all the things that we intend on bringing to our destination. Also, a brief note to future me, please put comms on the primary spacecraft. We have gotten all the way through this build and all of these test runs, and every single time I forget to put comms on the spacecraft. All right, we are on our way back down, but we've only got about a minute of runtime left on this stage. We should be well out of the risk of hitting the atmosphere on the way back down. Not that our HG3 stage has much in the way of TWR either. Barely, well, 0.49, barely 0.5 TWR, but it won't have much work to do. We just really need a little bit of topping off here, and here comes circularization now. There'll be camera change, and then orbit. 296 by 148. Not the greatest, but it's also legit. But very briefly, I'm going to turn you over to Old Me to discuss some of our findings from this test flight.
All right, RCS to arm. Let's time warp for half a second, kill that. How is roll control working? These two thrusters still not firing. Those two thrusters still not firing. Oh, did I? That might help. Okay, then. That's interesting. Okay, but they do fire with the... Oh, those two are angled out. And those two are angled in. Oh, that is interesting. That's probably why they're not actuating with roll control. That is very, very interesting. How did that happen? Because these parts aren't in symmetry with each other. So when I placed 2 over here, it should have copied it direct. I guess, man, maybe I had it in radial mode? But yeah, you can kind of see the difference here, whereas that's got the long side on the inside edge, and this one has the long side on the outside edge. Oh, that is interesting.
Well, with that test complete, we'll just make some very small changes to our thruster placement. Really should have slid this thing over before starting this, but don't worry, we'll get to it after we have the thrusters adjusted, placed better, I should hope. So anyway, it looks like copying them over, even in symmetry mode, inverts one of them, and trying to do it in radial symmetry mode puts them both on the same side. So we're going to have to place these thrusters individually, which really sucks, but I do want them to work. So we just pick an orientation and then try to make them all face the same way and hope that we just have them loosely even. They're primary purpose is for roll control. So if they're a little bit offset, it's not the end of the world. We'll just get a little bit of torque induced during roll commands, although I would really, really like to avoid that. So it would be extra nice if KSP would just symmetry things correctly. So I'm just trying to use reference points for the corners as far as how to line these up and hopefully get them right. But I think I've done as good as a job as I'm gonna be able to do with these currently. I keep telling myself I'm going to do an RCS build aid pass, but I think we've kind of passed that margin. I did, of course, forget to put comms on this thing again, which is extra nice. But we'll double check the staging at least. We won't RUD ourselves entirely on purpose. Although we do need to make sure that these panels are after all the boosters are off, because they will take out a booster on their way off the craft, as we've discovered before. So there's that. And we will bring back the VAB building so that we can try to realign the rocket as far as the crawler way. It is difficult because it takes a very long time for KSP to load everything with the shift click and decide that we actually have hold of the rocket. Yeah, there we go. So we're just going to try to line it up with the circle, take the VAB back away, and then raise it so that we can launch it from an above ground position, which is generally the way you want to do things with rockets, although we don't really need to be that high up. I guess it would be advantageous. So we'll scrap the 2 that we have in production currently and add 2 more to the build list that will be need to be edited so that they can have comms. Yeah. But we've saved the design, we've got them on the build list, and so now we can actually get to what I had intended to do this live stream in a fresh VAB. Now, with our new crewed vehicle running on Keralox instead of Aerozine 50 and nitrogen tetroxide, like all of our other interplanetary vessels have done, we will need to redesign our supply runs. The pods we have now are perfectly capable, but they mostly transport, well, our life support pods are fine. We need a new fueler. We need a way to bring a lot of liquid oxygen and kerosene out to destination so that we can refuel our spacecraft on station and then bring it safely back to Earth. So the very first thing we need to do is figure out our ratios. So we're just going to put this dummy tank here for the time being and put one of our Block 5 engines underneath it. There we go. And then size it up until we have an appropriate runtime. We got about 6 minutes of runtime on the spacecraft as it sits currently, so we're like to get somewhere near that figure, and then I'm going to write down what is in each tank, or what is in the tank as far as the amount of liquid oxygen and the amount of kerosene total, because we can actually save a lot of weight. By separating out the 2 fuels, or the fuel and the oxidizer. The liquid oxygen really needs to be in a service module tank, and this is for boil-off purposes. Balloon tanks are a whole lot lighter, but boil-off is a whole lot worse. So if we can put just the liquid oxygen into a service module tank and just the kerosene into a balloon tank, because it's not going to go anywhere, we can save a couple of tons in dry mass by restricting how big our service module tank has to be, which is super advantageous for all parties involved. We also do need to have the added expense of shipping radiators, and we can either choose to run this on a Keralox engine itself, which is kind of counterproductive, or a storable propellants engine, namely our new experimental ELE engine, or a derivative of an AJ-10, are probably going to be winning candidates, although for something that's going to be as heavy as this thing, and we're coming in probably right around 200 tons or so, we're probably going to want the high thrust of our experimental engine, although it does have very limited runtime. By very limited, I mean 8 minutes, which is super impressive for any rocket engine. But even with a fairly large Aerozine tank, we can get about 600 meters per second out of this thing, which is more than enough to pull off a docking or a rendezvous should we need to at any particular planet. Maybe even handle a little bit of a plane change, but not much else. So we might be relying on Aero capture as far as putting these supply pods in orbit, which at Venus probably isn't going to be that big of a problem. Just a really large heat shield with a whole lot of ablator should definitely provide us with a enough drag to slow this thing down into an orbit. At Mars, however, that's going to be a little interesting. We have had trouble trying to capture things that are about 80, 90, 100 tons using just Mars atmosphere. I think our last Artemis missions hit Atmo at somewhere between 78 and 90 tons, and they had to turn and burn for, I want to say, a kilometer per second or so before they could capture into Mars orbit. So for something this massive, it's probably going to have to be some combination of using an upper stage to break into orbit and a heat shield to bleed off the rest of the speed through aero capture. Not the most ideal plan, and it certainly hasn't earned its paint job yet. We still need to make sure that this is even a viable solution. We may have to do resupply runs in groups of 2 as far as sending liquid oxygen up on one supply pod and kerosene up on a different supply pod, maybe mixing in some life support just for good measure to make sure. But the rocket selected for the contract for these resupply missions is the Liftoff, our very famous rocket that sent the Mars base, the surface base, out to Mars. I did want to make some very small changes to this, namely being able to bring the HG3s a little bit lower so that I can actually click on their hitbox and check ignition status or ullage status and available ignitions. So we'll just make some very slight changes there. I think the aesthetic remains entirely intact. Although I did want to make one other change so that we can discern this just visually as far as recognizing it as a supply run rocket and not a critical infrastructure rocket. And we'll do that, of course, just by changing the texture. There it is. Excellent. He's a little squished, but I think it works. It works pretty well, and I hope Human Person, the original designer of this rocket, will approve the stylistic choice. If not, please feel free to get a hold of me. We can figure something out, I'm sure. A couple of struts, some fairings, not these fairings, but some fairings, and we'll get this thing out on the launch pad for a dry run. So for that, I will turn you over to Old Me for live coverage.
It could be worse. I actually had to go outside today. It was awful. Alright, throttle is set to full, SAS is on, ignition. Oh, I didn't make sure that these were the 172s and not the 171s. It's a good light. Why are my clamps so tall? Doesn't matter. 1.14 off the pads. This is actually slower than our BPR, which at some point I'm going to slip up and call the PBR, because there used to be a lot of blue ribbon in my house. Check their thrust, good call. I mean, we're still at sea level, give or take. I mean, I don't know, those clamps were tall, but they weren't quite that tall. But we'll see if they get up there a bit more. 7,200 kilonewtons currently. Why not extending the clamps to the moon? I think we need a Scott Manley stage. I think if we had a Scott Manley stage, the YouTube community at large would think maybe I was pandering or vying for attention. I'm glad you're going to stick around, Lucy. We really have about 13 more minutes, so we made it to orbit in 13 real-world minutes last time, so maybe. They're not 172s. They should have 311 sea level ISP. Excellent. Then you can go make an IRM configs. Aren't you supposed to be doing homework? Let's have 310. Ah. Okay, well, we're going to have to upgrade that because That was pretty slow off the pad, and I should have been in this gravity turn, 47 meters per second ago. Your homework is done. Did you successfully watch a stream and do homework? That is incredibly impressive. A feat I have never been able to accomplish. Although I attempt it literally every week. You should be proud. I'm proud of you. We need to add the 170 test flight configs. Oh, you're trying to kill people, SimG. I mean, yeah, probably. It would seem only fair. It's hastily done, but good enough. I can still be said about literally all of my homework assignments. I still have homework assignments that I have to do tonight before midnight, which makes me mad because I'm off work tomorrow. I could totally procrastinate for another day. Would I be interested in Methalox versions of the 170, 80, and 90s? Maybe. I am intrigued, and yeah, if it's just a config to add to the current engines for variants, then yeah. I mean, the half of the reason I can justify using different engines or new engines and configs is because I don't make them, so I feel like it's not cheating, because I'm obviously not trying to, like, give myself a little push. But I'm always willing to accept contributions from the community. And even better that they were actually proposed. Then you have documentation to work from, and that makes it seem even more legit to me. So these are not the 172s. I can close this out. This makes this a very bad test flight. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to restart it, but if it works on the 17... These are probably 171Ms. If it works on the 171Ms, it will absolutely work on the 172s, just a little bit faster. Instead of putting people on the stages, we should put a planet or station, whatever the payload was going to. It would be great for public outreach. That is a outstanding idea, actually. I like that. The 191 had a Methalox version, so you could just multiply it, honestly. Interesting. Well, yeah. I really screwed the hell up out of this gravity turn, so this is absolutely the worst demonstrator flight ever. We need to be something like here by now. How did I get the first one so textbook and this one is just butchered? Could be on the fairing like in real life. That might be a bit complicated. I agree, and honestly, I would have preferred the Hasselhoff stuff be on the fairing and not on the body rocket itself, the rocket body itself, but being not the builder, I am not the, I don't get to make these decisions. Alright, coming up on Booster SEP. Off and away. It's our Hofflecross. Oh, except the Scatterer playing dumb things with our graphics. Yes, there's our Hofflecross. Where's our fairing SEP? Why did I not action or group it accordingly, and that they could have been gone a good long while ago. Off and away. 3 minutes 19 runtime, 2 minutes 7 seconds left on the stage, so let's hold about 2.5 degrees above horizon. There we go. What is it called exactly? Have an Engines 1944 to 2000 Encyclopedia. A really cool book. Oh, that... I am very interested in this book. It contains all Soviet and post-Soviet rocket aviation industrial engines ever designed in the USSR, Russia, or Ukraine. Oh, it's only in Russian. Yeah, Google Translator ask. I am very interested in this. It would only be a Hoff across if Hoff designed the rocket. Nani. Yeah, you'll have to talk to Human a Person about that, but it's either a joke or a tribute or both. And how... That's our kerosene. How's our liquid oxygen looking? We've had a little bit of boil off because the radiators are not on. Those should be action grouped. The solar panels should be action grouped. But alas, they are not. Art book of the guy who did all the concept art for NASA in the late Apollo early shuttle days. Oh, that would be a fun thing to flip through. I'd keep that on my coffee table. How long we got? 6 minutes. How much time warp will the Hoff put up with? Oh, we can take Hoff all the way to 4x. Yeah, we're so far off our base. I screwed up this ascent really badly. I think probably upwards of 1 kilometer per second I screwed up this ascent. Yeah, we are 2 kilometers per second shy of orbital velocity, and we're getting ready to just basically dump our TWR. Stage set, ignition. English teacher showed it to you. You have a NASA jacket and shoes? Shoes? Oh, Lucy, you must show me these shoes. That was a picture-perfect separation. It looked good as hell in a movie. With David Hasselhoff? I mean... Or just the mechanically separating. I missed it. I was reading chat. NASA Vans will post in Discord. Please do. Oh, man. Love me some old school skater shoes. Who else would you put in a space movie? I mean, lots of people. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, after his epic performance in the classic documentary Doom. Matt Damon. That's hilarious. He didn't pick up on that, Paul C. Remake The Martian with the Hoff instead of Matt Damon. We also need to extend our solar panels, even though we're not in any direct sunlight or in any threat of needing them. Alright, I need to make some notes here. Radiators to action group, solars to action group and comms. Oh, how did you guys let me build that? Engineering, not English. So I said at one point, if you ever land on Jupiter, oh, they're an off topic. Awesome. Okay, yeah, those are kind of awesome. I do want, although it's gonna break my like 15-year streak of wearing nothing but Chuck Taylors. They were stupid hard to find. I don't doubt. They're kind of cool. I mean, they're really cool. You're wearing them right now, aren't you, Lucy? Pulsey, I am also wearing jeans right now. And it's only because I had to leave the house. Otherwise, I would be wearing my nice cottony pajama pants. Alright, we need to shut this down. Unfortunately. Can I click on the engines now? Yes! Excellent. Alright, so I'm fairly certain that had I not botched the ascent, we'd be in pretty good shape to ship this off to Mars or Venus. Getting it into orbit, however, is going to be interesting, so we're either going to have to include a heat shield for Venus or a lot more fuel for Mars, which is going to make things even more interesting. Look into his eyes, SimG. Thrusters thrusting, radiators radiating, solar panels, soloring David Hasselhoffing, all systems green. Indeed. Alright, so unfortunately that's going to have to do it for me today. Oh, that is an awesome jacket, Lucy. Why would you do that to me? Why would you do that to me? I'm going to have to call it a night, everyone. I'm very sorry, but thank you so much for hanging out. This was a pretty awesome stream. Very low key, very fun day goofing off, and I genuinely enjoyed it. And thank you all of you on the YouTubes and everywhere else for helping getting us to 1,500 subscribers. That's insane. It's been an absolutely fantastic 2.5 years. Well, I can't thank you enough. So, I love all of you. Thank you for hanging out with me. You really are the best community in gaming. I can't say that enough. So, I'm going to go find someone to raid, and then, yeah, I'll probably be on the Discord whenever Baby Crash lets me be on the Discord. So, I'm going to cue you to the outro. I'm going to find some other KSP channel to raid you all lovely people into. And so, that's going to do it for this one, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it, and I will see all of you in the next one. So, until then, see you later.